I stand in opposition to H.R. 1425. We can't forget the dark times that COVID-19 brought to our communities across the United States and around the entire world. The pandemic resulted in a tragic loss of lives. More than 1.2 million Americans and more than 7 million people around the world died. Now, the next pandemic is not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. During the response to COVID-19, we saw inequities, inequalities, and unfairness across the international system. Vaccine manufacturing capabilities benefiting wealthy nations, and vaccine access being denied to less wealthy nations who were forced to wait in line and in some cases punished for sharing COVID samples with CDC labs and other global health institutions that helped improve the efficacy of U.S.-produced vaccines. The American people, they understand that the United States leadership is critical to addressing the world's most pressing challenges. A key way to do this is through multilateral institutions, including the World Health Organization. You see, working multilaterally is critical to strengthening our national security and to securing our public health systems. Don't just take my word for it. In a nationwide poll conducted at the height of the pandemic, it was found that 82% of American voters supported the United Nations' role in helping to stop the spread of COVID-19 overseas. That included 98% of Democrats and 69% of Republicans. The Pandemic Accord aims to strengthen global pandemic prevention, preparedness, and response. The United States is a linchpin in ensuring a pandemic accord not only serves our global health security interests, but also helps coordinate a global response to public health threats that don't see our borders. H.R. 1425, sadly, it is nakedly partisan attempt to subvert U.S. diplomatic efforts to reach a pandemic accord agreement alongside 194 World Health Organization member states. The draft pandemic agreement strengthens the global workforce, improves distribution of medical countermeasures, and provides funding for WHO members to improve their response capacity. We must not miss this opportunity to improve global health systems' response capacity, including to prevent the tragic loss of life in the United States of America and globally. Only by learning from our mistakes made during the global response to COVID-19 pandemic, this agreement could be a watershed moment in advancing global health security. We must support the ongoing pandemic agreement negotiations as it could prove essential to saving American lives. Unfortunately, this bill only serves to undermine diplomatic efforts seeking to strengthen global health security. House Foreign Affairs Committee Democrats unanimously opposed this measure at markup. And we made clear when this bill was marked up by our committee in July, the President has the authority of acceding to an agreement through executive action. Executive action does not require the advice and consent of the Senate. The vast majority, 90% of all U.S. international legal agreements are approved via executive action rather than formal approval by the Senate. The draft pandemic agreement under negotiation is not a treaty. If it were, I would be standing in support of H.R. 1425. While framed as an effort to increase congressional oversight, this bill really is a part of Republicans' polarization of COVID responses and anti-science-based policy. It puts the safety and national security of Americans in jeopardy, simply because they don't like the WHO or any multilateral institutions for that matter. Under their isolationists, they like to isolate themselves from everything and everyone. It is the MAGA platform. If the U.S. is not allowed to sit at the table or our negotiating leverage is weakened by this bill, our adversaries and those who do not have our best interests in mind, guess what? They'll be the ones to fill the void. The Biden-Harris administration has made a good faith effort to notify Congress of its planned actions regarding U.S. negotiations, and these efforts have been met with unanimous oppositions from Senate and House Republicans who have voiced their opposition to any agreement, no matter what its contents are. You know, one of the misleading claims made by critics of the draft pandemic agreement includes the idea that it would subvert U.S. sovereignty. Yet, in fact, the draft pandemic agreement explicitly states that it does not give the WHO any power to dictate specific policy to member nations, and the member states may implement policies according to their sovereign laws. Simply put, the draft pandemic agreement expressly affirms the sovereignty of nations to address public health matters. False claims that the agreement would undermine our sovereignty have been thoroughly debunked by multiple reputable sources. The Biden-Harris administration has made it clear that they will not support any agreement harmful to U.S. interests, including our sovereignty. Securing the pandemic agreement would be essential to saving not just American lives, but many lives around the world. This bill undermines diplomatic efforts seeking to strengthen global health security, and I, alongside all House Foreign Affairs Committee Democrats, unanimously oppose this measure. And with that, I reserve the balance of my time.